Welcome back to Archer's World of Literature, guys. Today we're going to be doing probably my final 2022 sort of wrap-up content, and I'm going to be going through my year in books for 2022. I've got my Goodreads list up here for my year in books, and I've got like some stats, some average pages, some books read, things like that, and I'm also going to be going through, it was really hard to nail this down, but I'm also going to be going through my top 5 picks for the year. Now, this is not going to be including rereads. This is going to be including books that I may have started in the past, but I've started and finished it for the first time in 2022. I'm going to be going through those stats, going through those top 5. It's going to be a really good reflective video for me. Remember some favorites, some things I've jotted down. So hopefully you guys enjoy it too, and get some new books for your TBR. So, to start off with, we are going to go off with just some stats that I've got on my Goodreads page here. You can follow me at Goodreads to see what I'm reading, or, do any read-alongs with me, or chat to me, comment about, where you're up to in a book, anything like that, on the link in the description. But so far, I had an average, I had 25,440 pages read, and I got 63 books read this month. It is probably worth mentioning that I do have a couple that I'm reading at the moment. One that I definitely will be finishing before the end of the year, but this is just the best time for me to make this video with Christmas and the time and stuff like that. I am reading Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol and Other Christmas Writings. Now, this is not actually classified as a reread because I've never read And Other Christmas Writings. I've read Christmas Carol and I try and read it every year at Christmas, but I haven't read the other Christmas writings, and I'm getting through some of them apart from Christmas Carol. I'm on Christmas Carol now, but I've started reading some of the short stories and stuff, and they're just beautiful. He's a master of writing about Christmas and the joys of Christmas and what it means with family and food and love and kindness and friendship and all those sort of things. So that probably will be on here, but I'm just going to be going off what is officially on my Goodreads as of the 24th of December because, like I said, this is the only time I can fit this video in my schedule. 63 books read. I had a goal of 50 and I've passed that by 13, so I'm very, very happy that I was able to read so much this year. So my shortest book with 55 pages was actually The Night is Darkening Round Me by Emily Bronte. This was beautiful, gorgeous. She's one of my favorite poets of all time. Most people would know her for writing Wuthering Heights, which is here, I think, which is amazing as well, by the way. But her poetry is just so like grim and beautiful and just real. Like it's just, I don't know, how she talks about death in this book is just really, it's like brutally honest, and it's a bit depressing, but I like that kind of poetry, so that was really, really great. My longest book of this year was actually, I thought that it was Robert Jordan's The Shadow Rising, which was book 4 of The Wheel of Time, but because of the notes and sort of appendices in this specific edition I'm about to hold up for you, my longest book was actually James Joyce's Ulysses, which, I mean, you can see it's a murder weapon, right? Like, you could use this to, like, defend yourself. Like, it's huge. So yeah, that was 1,040 pages, and also Emily Bronte was 55. But yeah, the longest book, this edition of Ulysses, is 1,040 pages. This is one of my favorite books of all time. This has snuck its way into literally top 5 ever. It is intimidating, it is challenging, it is hard, it is confusing, you won't understand everything. No one on this world will understand everything that is in this book, this masterpiece that Joyce has made. But the ending and just the journey, and it's set in like 16 hours in one day in Dublin, in Ireland, but it's so amazing, and it'll just transport you to this point of time. I will never forget this book. I'm going to be doing rereads across my life. I'm going to be studying it just out of joy. Like, I've got some extra books that I've got to read on scholarly essays about it and things like that, because there's just so much to unpack here. That Ulysses video is still coming, by the way. Me and Isla are still planning it. If you like I said, there's a reason why this is on the longest. This was my longest book this year. There's a reason why it's taking quite a while to make the videos, because there's a lot of planning that has to go into something like this. We have to rethink about everything in each chapter, all the themes, all of that stuff. So it is coming. It will be here one day. So keep waiting for that patiently if you're looking forward to that. My average book length in 2022 was 403 pages. I'm pretty impressed with that. That's sort of the average book size that I like to read. I would agree with that. I don't like short stories, so I think that would probably explain it. I like long books every now and then, like this. I definitely need to do only a few of these a year, like ones that are like this. I do prefer books that are about 403 pages exactly, so that was great for me. And, I like some short stories, but the reason I say I don't like short stories in general is because I need more, right? Like, I get to the end of a short story and it was brilliant, and I'm just like, why isn't this a novel? I wanted to be with these characters for longer. And I do understand that short stories have a point. They definitely have a place in literature, and I appreciate it, and I like quite a few of them, but I usually just prefer novels, so that's why that is there. Now, my average rating for 2022 was 4.3. I am a high rater. I know what I like. In a book. I know I like classic literature, and I know I like fantasy literature. And I know exactly sort of what type of subgenres and types I like. So that's why I sort of feel like I have a high rating, because most of the books I pick, I sort of have watched so many reviews and I've read so much about it that I think I'm definitely going to like it. So my average rating is 4.3. That's pretty awesome. My highest rated on Goodreads is A Storm of Swords Part 1, Steel and Snow by George R.R. Martin. Absolutely bloody brilliant. I'm probably going to be finishing my TBR. If you've watched my December TBR video it's a muck. It's completely ruined. I've had a lot going on this month, a lot of personal stuff. And I haven't been reading as much as I would have liked to. And also, if you watch that TBR and you go, wow, is Archer really going to read all this? Yeah, I'm with you now. Archer really couldn't read all this. I had Storm of Swords, which is over 1,000 pages. I had the entire Farseer trilogy. I had some classics. I had plays. I had A Christmas Carol. It was pretty stupid. For January, I'm going to lower that a little bit. But yeah, nonetheless, I had some personal things going on. But I don't think I'm going to finish. Where I was getting with that is that I'm sort of about 75% through with Storm of Swords, with both parts included. I think I'm going to be finishing it around very early January. But there's no surprise that's highest rated because it's incredible. So we're going to get to my top 5 picks for the year. And this was so hard. I wanted to pick 10. I wanted to pick 10 so badly. Going in order of this is my top 5, but this is also in order of when I read it. So the first one I'm going to mention is one I read at the start of the year, and the one I'm going to mention last is the one that I read later in the year. The first one is The Godfather by Mario Puzo, and The Godfather is just incredible. Don't kill me, and you can believe me or not believe me if you want. I haven't seen the film. I've watched a little bit of it, but I haven't seen the movie in full, and I haven't seen any of the other ones either. So I went into The Godfather relatively fresh, not really being a fan of the movies like a lot of people do. A lot of people get their eyes on movies that become popular and then they find out about a book, because movies have become a more mainstream and popular medium of entertainment than books are in recent years. The Godfather is insane. I want to reread it again in a couple of years because it's just... I don't really like crime thriller books, but The Godfather is... It's a crime book. It's not really a thriller because it's not really a murder mystery kind of detective sort of thing. It's about family, right? It's about a broken family, a completely broken family, and they're broken by money, by blood, by violence, by familial ties, by friendship, just broken up by a lot of things, but then they're also brought together by those same things, and that's something you can only really understand when you read that book, because it's full of betrayals, it's full of lust, it's full of loyalty, and friendship, love, all those things. So The Godfather sort of follows Don Corleone. Don Corleone is sort of the Godfather, which is sort of the mob boss of one of the leading crime families, Sicilian crime families in America. Don Corleone is the head of the Corleone family, if you would believe it. He has 4 children. That is, trying to remember, Sonny, Michael, Fredo, and I want to say Connie. I think Connie. And it mainly follows quite a few POVs. It follows Corleone's attendant. It follows the kids. It follows Sammy and Michael and Fredo and Connie. Mainly it follows his children though, because his children are the ones who are really starting to contend for the position of sort of head of the family as Don Corleone's health starts to decline. And as a result of that, we have the other families starting to see if they want to switch sides and betray him at the last minute because he's getting unwell, and a lot of those power plays and loyalties come into it. So it's insane. It's so fun, and it's really big, but you can speed through it. So absolutely love that book. So book number 2, if you've watched my monthly chapter video for November 2022, you will know that I got a tattoo for it. This camera angle is terrible. I got this tattoo for it. That is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, one of the best books of all time, my favorite classic book of all time, and it's also in my top 5 books ever. I don't really need to tell you all that much. Most people know about Crime and Punishment, but it follows the character of Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov is the typical Dostoevsky character. He's sad, he's boring, he's bit of a loser, he's desolate, he's got no interest in making real social connections, he just likes to stick to himself and be a little bit strange, a bit weird. He comes to a realization one day that the only way that he can become a great man, a truly great person, and be marked down in history books is if he kills somebody. That's what we're working with here. And so he decides to kill his landlady, his poor elderly landlady, with an axe. And basically the story that follows is the psychological downfall of him sort of trying to escape justice for what he's done, but also escape the confines of his own mind when he starts to realize that what he did was wrong, and it wasn't actually as easy as he thought, because the mental ramifications are impossible to outrun. So that's as best as I can put it. Read Crime and Punishment if you haven't. It'll absolutely change your life. Like I'm telling you, it's so good. Next up for number 3, we have Oliver Twist. So Oliver Twist was just such a fun read. I had watched a couple of adaptations and series and like movies, musicals, yada yada, as a child, and I'd watched specifically, I think it was the BBC sort of special series of Oliver Twist, and that was really, really great. But I read Christmas Carol for the first time a few years ago, and I was really starting to fall in love with Charles Dickens as a writer, and I was like, I really need to read this book. Like, it was really high up on my priority list for classics, and so it was one of the first ones that I read this year, and since high school for fun. It was one of the first ones I read. Really enjoyed my time with him. Oliver Twist, he's a poor boy. He gets wrapped up in a life of crime with some sort of a syndicate of people that get like homeless children off the streets of London to pickpocket people, and then they profit off the children because the children are nimble and they can escape the police and all that. It's amazing. It's a story of family and friendship, and sort of what it means to be manipulated, right? Like what it means to be innocent or guilty, and whether your choice, whether you've been forced to do something or whether your choice has any impact on your sentence for those sort of crimes. So Oliver Twist is great. It's a beautiful tale. Oliver Twist is such a sweet boy. He just gets caught up with some bad people. So the second last book I'm going to mention is A Game of Thrones. I started this many times. Funny story time. I got my dad. My dad isn't like a huge reader. My mum was a big reader. When I was about 12, maybe 11 or 12, I'd heard a bunch about Game of Thrones and how cool it was, and it was fantasy and all this stuff, because the show was coming out at that point. My dad took me to Kmart, and at Kmart, books are usually quite cheap. And yeah, like I said, I was about 11 years old and stuff, and Dad's like, oh, I'll buy you a book. And I pointed to Game of Thrones and I said, can I have that one? And because Dad wasn't really a big reader and stuff, so he didn't really know anything about what it was about, all the brutal, graphic sex scenes and violence and stuff in it. And he bought it. It's such a funny memory, because now I love the series, and I'm as an adult, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm glad I didn't get to read that, because I wouldn't have understood anything, and it was pretty brutal. I get home, because Dad didn't know what was going on in that book. I get home, I start reading it, and then my mum gets home, and I go up to her because she's a prolific reader, and I went up to her and I was like, Mum, look, I got a book. I'm starting this huge book. Are you proud of me and stuff? And then she was like to my dad, like, did you buy this book for him? And then he's like, yeah. And she's like, do you know what this is about? And he's like, no. And so my mum ended up confiscating it off me, and it was like, you can't be reading this like till you're older or whatever. You're not allowed to read this. And then I think I might have like found a way to read a couple of chapters online and stuff, and then I just stopped because, the rebellious side of me was like, oh, I want to read it, behind my parents' back. I'm going to find it online, whatever. But then as I really started getting into it, I was like, I don't understand any of this because it's quite intense. It's epic fantasy, and I was like 11. That's just a bit of a funny story. Sidetrack, I got completely distracted. But A Game of Thrones is brilliant. For someone who's such a huge fan of A Song of Ice and Fire as I am now, and Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, all of that stuff. George R.R. Martin's amazing detailed, immense, humongous world of Westeros, and the Free Cities. It's a really good introduction. I would recommend watching the show first, just for that first book, because the show is sort of word for word, page for page, and it does help you sort of identify the houses and the characters and the colors of the landscape and just all that. But when I read the book, after reading the show and stuff, it made it really easy to follow along with those sort of things, and it's just a perfect setup. It's got everything. It's got a little bit of a hint of dragons, some hints of magic. It's got immense history, and it fills you with the lore. It's got descriptions of the houses and amazing scenes. So that is Game of Thrones. Okay, so I know this is not what most of you are used to. I was just editing this video, and then this final book, and this outro, like the last couple of minutes, just this last video, the file got corrupted or something. So I was in the middle of editing, and I was just about to post the video, and then I was just like, oh, I'm gonna have to go and refilm this part. And because my SD card's already in my computer and stuff, I'm just gonna film it on my phone. I'm hoping this is going to be okay. I know it looks terrible, but I'm hoping the audio is all right. The final book that I wanted to talk about was, I mentioned it earlier in the video. It was the longest book I read this year, and it snuck its way into my top classics of all time, and also my top 5 classic books of all time. My top 5 books ever, not just classics, period. And that is none other than James Joyce's modern masterpiece, Ulysses. For a book that's regarded as one of the best novels ever written and the best modern books ever, I feel like a lot of people don't actually know what it's about, because people think there's a gateway to it because of how renowned it is for being difficult. I would recommend, don't read this book at a point in your life where you've convinced yourself that you're not going to be able to finish it and you've convinced yourself it's too hard. Give it a shot. So if you keep seeing me look this way, I've got food cooking while I was editing this video, and then my cat has been a little bit cheeky and trying to eat it, so I'm just making sure she doesn't jump on there. Sidetrack again, over. Don't read it at a point when you've convinced yourself that you can't read it. When you've gathered the strength and the determination and the will to do it, just do it. And when I'm telling you, my advice to someone who's read it and struggled through all the hard stuff and reaped the rewards of all the easy stuff, when it gets hard, just push through. Even if you don't understand what's going on, just go through. Even if you're skimming over it, just push through it, because I promise you the following chapter will be so rewarding and worth it, and you will go, oh my god, this is what this is about. That last chapter didn't make much sense. Maybe I'll go back to it in like 5 years, or I'll read someone else's interpretation of it or whatever. Still read it, but don't feel bad if you don't understand anything. This book is incredible. The ending of it is it's a slow burn, because it's set in 16 hours in Dublin, and it follows primarily like 2 characters. It's got a large cast, but it primarily follows 2 characters, Stephen Dedalus and Leopold Bloom, and it sort of just talks about how their days kind of coerce together and stuff. So it is a slow burn because of those like smaller factors. A short day, a short cast, but I'm telling you, the payoff is incredible. So Ulysses is my favorite, my last book of my top 5 favorites that I've read this year that I wanted to bring up. So sort of as this weird iPhone outro, I guess. Thank you so much for watching. Your support means everything. I've been having heaps of fun in the Discord. If you don't know, I opened a Discord. Click on the link. It's a never expiring link to the World of Literature Discord I've started. We've got some really great people in there who are starting some really great discussions, and we've just got some great people in general. So I really want to keep that growing. Even if you're only into classics, you're only into fantasy, or if you're into both, whatever it is, pop on in, talk about your favorite books. I've got sections for all types of different literature and stuff. If there's a section or an author or a genre, a series, anything that is not like a text channel on there that you want, let me know and I'll add it. I'll do whatever you guys want. And I'm loving talking to you guys there. But also comments. If you don't want to go to the Discord, you don't have Discord, keep talking in the comments. Let me know what your top 5 favorite books for the year were. And I'm really, really interested to see what they are. See if maybe there were some that I read that I didn't put on my top 5. Maybe there were some that I really wanted to put in the top 10 but couldn't squeeze in the top 5. Etc., etc. So I'd really like to hear from you guys, and I hope you've had a wonderful year. If you celebrate Christmas like I do, Merry Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, or you celebrate another holiday, Happy Holidays. And I hope everyone has a marvelous New Year. So wherever you are, I hope you're safe, your family's well. Party hard, party safe, and enjoy the new year. So thank you so much for watching, and as I always like to say,
Keep reading and peace out.